kid who swings a golf club like a dream. I'd like to try to qualify him for the U.S. Amateurs.
Coming to Apple TV Plus.
What's your name?
I'm not into older guys, but I'm flattered.
A new comedy series, Stick.
I don't want to go on this trip.
Your mouth's saying one thing, but those eyes are saying something else.
From the home of Ted Lasso.
This is your shot at redemption? This is your mulligan?
Owen Wilson.
This game takes and it takes. The game's finally giving me something back.
Stick.
You know Arnold Palmer?
Iced tea, lemonade, mix it.
I'm missing a nap for this.
Streaming June 4th on Apple TV Plus.
How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy.
How many
discount.
discounts will you stack up? Visit USAA.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.
I think you're on mute.
Workday starting to sound the same?
I think you're on mute.
Find something that sounds better for your career on LinkedIn. With LinkedIn Job Collections, you can browse curated collections by relevant industries and benefits, like flex PTO or hybrid workplaces, so you can find the right job for you. Get started at linkedin.com/jobs. Finding where you fit. LinkedIn knows how.
Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for this day.
The new McCrispy Strip is here. Dip approved by ketchup, tangy barbecue, honey mustard, Sprite, McFlurry, Big Mac sauce, double dipped in buffalo and ranch, more ranch, and creamy chili McCrispy Strip Dip. Now at McDonald's. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Hey everybody, it's Weird Islanders, the podcast, back once again. My name is Dan. That is Mike. How are you this evening, Mike?
I'm doing pretty good. Excited about this one. As always, just a player that, yeah, he was with the Islanders for a very short time. But in terms of his impact on Islanders culture and my fandom as an Islander, I would say it like kind of prorates out to 400 games or so. That's what it feels like to me. I'm in a weird way when I think of this player, I think of him as an Islander, which is bizarre.
He played for so many teams that I could almost see that, because I feel that way, same way too. Like, we'll get to one team that he played for a lot that might sneak in there, but yeah, almost a shockingly short period of time considering how much impact he had, how much ink was spilled on him. A lot of it due to one incident. We'll get to that in a few minutes. But really, a guy who was a very good player, actually, for a number of teams and just kept moving and moving. And the Islanders were really no different. To talk about this very one-of-a-kind player, we brought on one of our favorites. You know him from this show. You know him from the Skates at the Stakes podcast. You know him as Rat Martin, and his name is Ryan. Ryan, what's going on tonight?
Hey guys, doing good, having fun. Very excited to record this episode. Yeah, just super excited. This was an Islander who came to the team during my first year following the team, watching all 82 and watching every game. So this is one I'm super excited to go through and do on the pod tonight.
What a season to start.
Yeah, I know. I know, seriously.
Goodness.
Yeah, this you picked a guy who's got a lot, so we really should get to it. But I just real quick, so what year of the podcast is this for you guys? Is this like 3 or 4? Because it feels like every time you open a show and you say what episode it is, I'm always like, man, these guys have been around a long time for 3 really young guys.
Yeah, it's interesting. So AJ and Jake, my podcast co-hosts over at Skates at the Stakes, have been doing the pod since, I believe, the year before the bubble. They started the podcast, but, you know, they were both still in school and college, and they were doing episodes pretty intermittently. And then the fall after the second season, so 2021, the fall of 2021, they brought me on, and I was like,
Mm.
we're gonna turn this into kind of a show here. We're gonna have a program and an agenda and everything, and be a little bit more well shaped. So I think that was like episode 30. I came on in like the end of 2021. So
Mm.
it's year 4 for me now,
Mm.
and it's year 5 or 6 for them. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, we've been doing a ton. We try to go weekly now.
Mm.
When things pick up, trade deadlines, off seasons, playoffs, we go to 2 or 3 times a week, and it's just a great time. We've built a nice little community. A lot of people listen to the show, give us feedback, talk to
Yeah.
us about the team, and it's a great way to engage with our friends and just put out the program, which is awesome.
Yeah. No, it's a great show. I listen every time you guys put out an episode, and I love the chemistry the three of you have too. I always say this, like, we have our thing. Every other Islanders podcast has their thing, and it's just great that like everybody's different, and you can pick it up and that this one feels like this and that one feels like that. And so I love the chemistry you guys have. I love the games that you play, like the drafts and stuff that you do. And, the kind of little, it feels like you're hanging out with friends, which is probably one of the better things you can say about any kind of podcast, hockey or otherwise. And so, again, I'm an every episode listener, so obviously keep it up. And we've had now all three of you on this show, and you were the first. And so now we're batting at the top of the order again. So tell AJ he'll be getting an email probably next season, and then Jake after that. That's the order, unless we bet out of order, we'll see. But we are here to talk about the very special player that you have selected, and like you said, you're excited. I'm excited. Mike is excited about this. This is a guy who will immediately bring up memories and probably some laughs along the way because he played fairly recently. And so, Ryan, will you please reveal the subject of tonight's episode of Weird Islanders, the podcast?
Tonight's Weird Islander of the night is James Wisniewski of the 2010-2011 New York Islanders.
And that's it. Just the 2010 Islanders, really, when you think about it. Reminder that we're on Patreon, patreon.com/Islanders Anxiety, ad-free episodes, bonus podcasts, written posts. You know the whole deal. Sign up today, patreon.com/Islanders Anxiety. Mike, I know you're dying to get into this because this is a player who I know you're a huge fan of, despite the fact that he only played 32 games. Can you believe that? 32 games as an Islander?
Well, it's the Brad Lukowicz treatment, right? Like
right.
they make the big splash in the offseason by with Lukowicz. It was as they signed him. I think Lukowicz signed a 3-year deal and he lasted half a season. And despite him being, the kind of the cornerstone leader in the locker room guy, and
right.
maybe a future captain if after Alexei Yashin leaves, but only to get traded at the trade deadline. The season he signed Brent Sopel too, right? Like signed halfway through, and he goes to LA. And Wisniewski. I will say the difference between those two guys and Wisniewski was that when the Islanders traded for Wisniewski, there was a lot more hype, I guess, around it. Like there was this was supposed to be a pretty good, solid, youngish defenseman. He was in his prime. The Islanders were in the middle of the rebuild from when they missed out on Victor Hedman at the 2009 draft. But they got the other guy and they were building around him, and they were doing that thing that rebuilding teams do, which is finding a way to fill the gaps or kind of like bridge the gap between their young core players who they think are ready for full-time NHL roles, like that guy Oposo and Bailey, and then you have the veteran guys who were around at that time, like Waite and a few other players. So they were trying to find the guys who kind of were in betweeners that, hey, maybe they stick, maybe they we trade them a couple of years, and Wisniewski seemed like the perfect kind of fit for that role because he was 25, 26 at the time of the trade, had some offensive upside, felt like he had the right attitude for what you were looking for in this team too. Like he wasn't noted as like a rabble rouser, or I guess he was a rabble rouser, but he wasn't like an enforcer type,
right?
Coming up, but he definitely knew his way around a hip check, and he seemed to always be mouthing off to somebody, sometimes quite literally.
Yeah.
And it felt like he was brought in perfectly, talented, in his prime, and also had an attitude that the Islanders were desperate for. He was going to come in and he was going to instill some pride into the team. And I signed up hook, line, and sinker. This guy is a cornerstone piece of a 2010, 2011 Islander blue line. And it turns out that he ticked all those boxes. He just did it in 32 games, not over the course of 6 years. He was just he brought a lot of attitude. He was talented. He was good. And then he was gone.
Yeah, a little bit like Zdeno Konopka, bringing the attitude to a team that was still trying to find itself. The other thing, though, that brought Wisniewski here was that Mark Streit got hurt. We'll get into that in a few minutes because that was the thing that really crushed this season. But I want to get back to Ryan because you said this is the first season that you became sort of a full-time fan. And we'll get to your game experience in a little bit. But like, what drew you to the team at first, and like, what made this the sort of epicenter for your Islanders fandom, and have you regretted it ever since? Because this is actually one of the worst seasons I remember ever seeing.
Certainly don't regret it. So I mean, I think I told a little bit of the story on my last appearance on Weird Islanders, which, if you remember the Derek Brassard episode, I kind of went through a little bit. And my father is a Rangers fan, and a really big Rangers fan. 94 was out with the parade, everything like that. But growing up, I just wasn't too into hockey. I was really, really, really into baseball. So even when like the Rangers, one of the memories I have of him was the 2008 playoffs and Sean Avery screening the goaltender, which he might come up later in the program. Screening, Martin Brodeur and the Avery rule and everything, getting instituted. I really wasn't into hockey. I wasn't into the Rangers. I didn't like that whole thing. In 2009, I think my family went to a Rangers Devils game at the Izod Center. Wasn't super into the Devils either. I just wasn't affiliated with the hockey team. But the summer before the 2010 season, my dad and my uncle, who's from the Bronx, but he was a Dynasty Islanders fan, bought tickets to the second game of the season at Nassau Coliseum. So if you kind of follow where I'm going here,
right.
The second game of the season was my first Islanders game. It was my first Islanders-Rangers game. And it was a game that we'll get to in a bit, but the Islanders wound up winning. My uncle bought me a Matt Molson t-shirt at the game, and it was kind of all in from there.
That's awesome. Yeah, what a game to go to. Yeah,
my dad was very mad about that, but it was just a phase, and it just stuck. I mean,
that's the problem with the Islanders is that they're not a phase. Right. Unfortunately, they're just not a phase for anybody.
Seriously.
And what I love, why I think that this season is a really appropriate first season to jump in on, is because like many other Islanders seasons, including the one that we're currently embroiled in right now, thankfully it's almost over, is it was cursed from before it started.
Yeah, right from the get-go.
Before, like you said, Streit. The Islanders were in Calgary for some reason during the preseason, and Dion Phaneuf sent Kyle Okposo into the netherworld with a hit, a preseason hit that still haunts me to this day. Why the Islanders were in Calgary for preseason, I know it was different back then, but just what a disaster.
Calgary, like it's like 2,500 miles away.
Incredible. And it's almost like a pay game in college football. Like, get the Islanders from Division III to come to Calgary and let Dion Phaneuf sink them. So yes, I mean, this is a perfect season to get introduced in, because you get you get to see what actually how it works right away. Like, we're the team where guys get hurt for the preseason for the entire year. Basically, Streit was out the entire season, and Okposo missed half. So, this is about as appropriate as it comes. And then you got to get it. You got to see some of the like I thought about Wisniewski, or this guy's got he's going to be the next big thing. The Rob Schremps of the world, and so I mean, you got it all. John Sim was still on this roster, so you had Rob Schremp, John Sim, and John Tavares all on the same team. Does it get better than that?
Yeah. This was a wild team, like, on paper before the season starts, and then you remove Streit, you remove Okposo. Streit, by the way, and again, we've talked about this before on this show and on Anxiety. Streit was hurt because Matt Molson, his own teammate, checked him into the boards very gingerly and just the wrong way, and he was out for the entire season. That's it. That's all it takes. And so a weird roster got even weirder with the addition of guys like Wisniewski. I think there were other trades that year too. But we'll park all that for a second. We'll talk about Wisniewski's career leading up to this moment, and then we'll get into his very, very short Islanders tenure. So he was drafted originally by Chicago in 2002 in the 5th round. He's out of Michigan, Canton, Michigan. Big Michigan guy. Played as a junior in Plymouth for the Whalers back then, who were, I think, the Flint Firebirds now, maybe, or whatever they are. They were owned by Peter Kalmanos back then. And, spends his first couple of seasons with the Blackhawks. We'll get to the suspensions in a bit, but of course he gets suspended a couple of times while he was there. Eventually, in 2009, he gets traded to Anaheim for Sammy Paulson, Logan Stevenson, and future considerations. He is not with Anaheim very long, though. He was only with the Ducks for 17 games that year and then 69 games the next year. But again, he put up pretty good numbers, 30 points in 69 games. It's not that bad for that team. But he got into some kind of stalemate with his contract as a UFA. And so he was going to be a UFA, I should say. And so that ended up being the Islanders' gain. And on, what is the date here? On July 10th, 2010, Garth Snow made a trade with the Anaheim Ducks to get James Wisniewski for a 3rd-round draft pick, which became a player named Joseph Cramarosa. Remember that because we're going to bring him back up in a little bit. So, again, I think it's probably now a good point where we talk about the kind of player that Wisniewski was. Yes, he was a defenseman. He wasn't overly big. He was only about 5'11". Could put up points, 26 points in 68 games 1 year for Chicago. Again, 30 points in 69 games for the Ducks. So, he knew how to put up points, not a lot, but, he wasn't, all thumbs out there either. But he was also known for getting suspended a lot. To that March 2008, gets suspended for cross-checking a player in the neck. November 2009, gets suspended for an illegal hit on Shane Doan. March 10th, 2010, gets suspended for boarding Brent Seabrook, a guy he literally played with a year or two before. So this guy was a bit of a wild card. But, like Mike said, when you get a player like this, you're looking for that attitude as well as like what he can play on the ice. And we'll get again to the attitude very, very soon. Ryan, I know you were very young. I'm sure you had no kind of knowledge of Wisniewski at this point in your life, but having gone back and looked at his career and these kinds of suspensions and, the kind of player he was, like, what kind of like opinion have you formed of him? Like, is he a guy that you thought, might have been somebody who could be a hero of yours or a favorite of yours had he stuck around with the Islanders for a little while? Or you were just like, you know what, maybe this guy probably wasn't ever meant to spend that much time here?
Yeah, I went through some YouTube clips just to get up on like what that Chicago time of his career and what the Anaheim time was, because those were some good Ducks teams at the end of the 2000. I remember from the video games they were pretty loaded.
Yeah,
and everything growing up.
This was just after they won the cup. I mean, they won the cup in 2007. So
yeah. And then after watching, he was the kind of hockey player that I think the perfect kind of embodiment of him was. There were all these 2-minute YouTube videos with Linkin Park blasting in the background as James Wisniewski hits one of the most illegal hits you'd see in the modern NHL.
Right, yeah.
A pretty cool goal, and like Linkin Park's blasting in the background, the song from Transformers or whatever. And I'm just like, yeah, this is the era where James Wisniewski would have thrived. 2010, found his perfect home on Long Island. I thought that was awesome. But yeah, no, I mean, I went back and watched a couple of the games from the 2010 season in prep too. And one thing the commentators always highlight, be it, the MSG booth or Joe and Sam from the Rangers game we'll get into in a moment, is just the big change in the blue line from 2009 to 2010, where even though the names like Mark Eden might not be the sexiest in 2025, like you look at 2009, and we had like Bruno Gervais out there for 25 minutes a night most nights. Wound up being a big step up.
Yeah, Bruno was he's in that same heap of players where I was like, well, this is the guy. He's young and he's in the NHL, so it must mean he's good.
Freddie Meyer,
Bruno, Freddie Meyer. We get Jack Hillett and Andrew McDonald is the next the next big thing too, and Dylan Reese. What a find he could be. for the New York Islanders. And yeah, it was fun. Like you go from that blue line to this one, and you're like, okay, like I was fooled. I was drinking the Bruno Gervais, Chris Campoli, Kool-Aid. Now I know what a real NHL defenseman is. It looks like Mark Eaton and Mike Motto, and these are the type of guys that you need to have on your blue line to win. Although Bruno stuck around for this season too. Bruno, man, obviously not a weird Islander. He's almost like a lifelong Islander. Do you know how many games Bruno Gervais played in the NHL?
I'm unfortunately on his hockey reference page. So
Oh no,
I do. But
so
Ryan,
can you
do wanna
believe
take
it?
I'm also on his page.
Yeah, of course.
And,
He's probably getting Google alerts right now. Like, why is my hockey reference? Like,
the answer is 418.
Yeah,
which is crazy.
300 for the Islanders, and here's the secret: he wasn't very good. Like that's. But so we love Bruno, obviously, Chef Bruno, and we thought he was going to be something, but he wasn't very good. He when you think about Noah Dobson, and like the people who think Noah's great, and then the people who think he's terrible, and the answer is probably in between. The people who think Noah is like one of the worst defensemen in the league, that's what Bruno Gervais is. What Noah Dobson is to those people. But anyways, back to going from that blue line to this one where you were having, like Bruno Gervais was like the focal point of the defense to then being the number 6 guy behind a stalwart like James Wisniewski. This is what it's supposed to be. You got the mix of brash youth with Wisniewski with the veteran know-how of these other guys. And I liked what I remember from Wisniewski before the Islanders were 3 things. One, he played with a white stick that was really he was like very, I think, like in that era, he was one of the only ones to do it. So it looked, you kind of lost it on the broadcast. So it just looked like the puck was kind of floating invisibly, which I always liked. I liked he was like a blonde kind of throwback to the early aughts, like that draft pictures with like Thomas Vanek and stuff too. So he was like from that era,
Frosted Tips era.
Yeah, exactly. Flip front. And then number 3
gets
was
back to the Lincoln Park thing that Ryan was just
right.
About.
Yes, exactly.
He called his stick White Lightning.
And the last thing was he felt like when he was talked about, it was as if you took the best trait of every defenseman in the NHL and you put it all into one defenseman. Like he's not too big and he's not too small. He hits really hard, but he's also smart and about how he's physical. He's got a good shot, but he's not an offensive dynamo. It was like they were making like a Megazord of a defenseman, except it spat out a guy who was, not that great. I guess. I mean, his numbers are fine, but he was like he was much closer to like a number 5 defenseman on a good team than a number 1 defenseman. Yet he had this hilarious reputation of having like everything you wanted a defenseman. It was like if you took Alex Romanov and Tony DeAngelo and like smashed them together.
He's the rare case of the whole being less than the sum of its parts. Like you could be like, he's pretty good at this, but he's pretty good at that. But then you kind of put it all together and it's like, yeah, he's sort of all right. He's like a 4-5, like you said. And then you throw in the fact that he has a propensity for getting suspended and then just being removed from the team. All of a sudden it's like, well, what do we have this guy on the roster for? Probably explains a lot of why he moved around a lot. I should correct myself, by the way. Apparently, so he was acquired in July, I guess probably around the time of the draft or maybe just after the draft. I thought he was acquired after Streit had gotten hurt, but no, he was acquired before Streit got hurt. So I guess the idea was that, and now that I think about it, now that I talk it out, I do kind of remember this. The idea was that you would have Streit and Wisniewski both on the roster, both on separate pairings, I guess, that would both sort of bring that kind of offensive element, although Streit was much, much better than Wisniewski. And so I thought it was the other way around. But so it comes to the Islanders. Again, this is a weird team. This team would eventually, it's so funny that for a guy who was suspended so often, he would not be around for the most notable incident in the 2010-2011 season, which was a certain fight night against the Penguins in February of 2011. He was way gone before then. And which again is funny because he was suspended all the time, but it was only a couple of games into his Islanders tenure when the most notable James Wisniewski incident happens, and this is where we need to discuss the Sean Avery incident, which was apparently Ryan's first ever Islanders game.
Amazing.
That's right.
What a game.
So just to remind everybody, the Islanders are playing the Rangers. It's Columbus Day. I forget the actual final score, but the Islanders did eventually win the game. And at one point, I believe it was in the first period, there's, a bit of a tussle in front of the net, and Sean Avery is there. Now, Sean Avery, obviously, we're not fans of his, and we don't expect anybody listening to this to be a fan of his. I'm still not a fan of his. I'll tell a story towards the end about Sean Avery, or maybe Sean Avery. And so there's a little bit of war, talking back and forth. Again, it's early in the game, and Wisniewski makes an unfortunate decision to make an offensive gesture that was caught on camera.
And Avery gives DiPietro a little shower. That's what Wisniewski took exception to. So perhaps an appointment.
It was seen by, 15,000 odd people, many of them kids, in the Columbus Day game. And he was suspended for 2 games for that gesture. I don't know how descriptive we want to get. You could look it up on YouTube. It's again, regrettable. It's unfortunate. It's somewhat homophobic in this day and age. And it was dumb. It was a dumb thing for him to do, but he did it and he got suspended. Ryan, you were there. You were very young. I'm sure you have absolutely no idea what he was doing at the time, but do you remember any sort of commotion or anything going on at this point in the game?
Yeah, I do. So my dad after that would just he kept making fun of Wisniewski's name the rest of the game after that, which he was just rolling with the punches, I think, and trying not to be a bad sport, which he's a very, as far as Rangers fans go, he's a pretty good Rangers fan and rolls with the punches. But he was making fun of Wisniewski all night, just like Wisniewski, saying his name all funny after that. But yeah, no, it was, as a kid, I have no recollection of it. And I went back and watched the game and I was like, oh my gosh, what was my family thinking seeing that around me? No clue. And the final score was 6-4. It was a very high scoring hockey game. And Rick was in that night, which was cool.
This is a crazy game, actually. And because of what Wisniewski did, it just becomes the game where James Wisniewski did that obscene gesture. But I remember this being really well because the Islanders had started the season okay, not nothing crazy, but this was game 2 of the season. I think they got a point in their first game or so.
Yeah.
And
they were 1-0-1.
Right, they were 1-0-1, and I don't know if it was Newsday. I'm assuming it was either Newsday or maybe the Daily News at the time. But after this game, they wrote about how this was the most meaningful Islander Ranger game in a decade. It was the first one with meaning. And I was like, well, I got caught up in it, obviously. I was in college at the time and pumped. I was living with a lot of Ranger fans. One of my roommates was Chris Drury's brother-in-law. So that was fun. It was just fun. It was a fun day to be an Islander fan, even though it was only game 2. And that's why it was meaningful, was because it was only game 2 and it was a crazy game that started in true Islander Ranger fashion. The Islanders get a power play early in this game. And wouldn't you know it, the Rangers end up with a shorthanded penalty shot, of course, and Marian Gaborik in on Rick, and Rick makes a save. This was during Rick's white pads era. He was, we go from the silver and navy Bridgeport Sound Tiger ones to the brown ones to the bright orange ones. Then he had his little pink ones, and now he's in his white pads era. So not the best time to be a Rick DiPietro barracker, but this game was nuts, man. It's 6-4. Islanders end up winning, and that attitude we keep referencing, which of course does climax in the in the fight night a bunch of months later. You could start to see it start to develop in this game. This is when I was, wow, these guys actually get what it means to be an Islander and play in an Islander Ranger game. And Blake Como scores, Josh Bailey scores. It really felt like the Islanders, P.A. Parento, a former Ranger, who they all were like, oh man, I can't believe we let him go for nothing. And now he's on the Islanders and he's the best player ever. And
Konopka and Brandon Prust had actually a fight in the same peried that when Wisniewski made that gesture. And Wisniewski was not penalized, by the way. I just found out. I'm just looking at the thing here. He was not penalized for that at the time. But yeah, Konopka and Prust fought 8 minutes into the period.
Yeah, we had Konopka. Oh God, what a team!
Yeah, watching the game back, they threw Marian Gaborik on that penalty kill just to get, a good breakout against the Islanders penalty kill or power play. And yeah,
And you
it
know
was
what?
awesome. You never see penalty shots like that anymore.
Do you think that teams to this day are still like, hey guys, pre-game scout, we're playing the Islanders again, so you know what video I'm about to show you. This is the same thing that's been working against this team when they're on the power play for 15 years now. Just put a little bit of pressure on them, and you're likely going to get a penalty shot out of it. Or at the very worst, we'll just kill the penalty off easily because they can't hold on to the puck and be composed on the power play. And they're like, well, those guys are all like 10 years retired by now. No, it doesn't matter. It's just been the same power play for 15 years. It doesn't matter if it's James Wisniewski running the point, Mark Streit, or Noah Dobson. Just do this and we'll be okay. So this, but this game was early in the season. It came at the perfect time. Islanders also were losing in this game late, I remember. I don't know. I think it was like 4-3, and they came back, and all of a sudden, there was hope in the season after 2 games, which felt like the first time in a long time for the Islanders, or in a couple of years, because they had the young guys who they all had great games in this against the Rangers, and Wisniewski played a part. Wisniewski scored a goal in his first game as an Islander, I remember.
Yeah.
So like this, it really did feel like there was something building here after 2 games. Turned out that they weren't building on anything. Actually, it was just going to be a crazy team.
Yeah, one of the crazier ones of our lifetime. But he scored his first in his first game, which was they actually lost in the shootout to Dallas.
He gets stopped, but he still ends up getting the puck.
And a big hit by Wisniewski flattens Jamie Benn. He's hurt. He's on all fours now, as you could see. He can't even get to his feet.
He's hurting.
That is James Wisniewski's game. He will level you, and he did to Jamie Benn. The Stars looking for some retribution. It'll have to wait. Big hit by Wisniewski. Shoulders stay down.
He had 2 points in that game. And actually, he had points in his first 7 games as an Islander. He had, let's see, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Actually, 9, 10, 11. He had 11 points in his first 7 games as an Islander, which is insane. Like, that's crazy. He had a goal, a ton of assists, and then another goal and 2 assist game against Montreal shortly after that Rangers game. So, I mean, it looked like this guy was going to be a great fit. And again, the fact that Streit was out almost made you think, man, if they had Streit too, boy, they would be really onto something. But no, he was a pretty darn good player. But then, as you said, the whole thing fell apart. Like, of those, they started losing games. I mean, they went through a 8-game losing streak at one point. This team was terrible. Again, by now you already know that this team was so bad that they got punked by the Penguins in a couple of different games. Blake Como got concussed. Rick DiPietro got his face rearranged by Brent Johnson, and it all led up to the fight night game. So, I mean, you could tell how awful this team would end up being. But at the time, there was hope. And it seemed like Wisniewski might have had, a lot of the qualities that they wanted. But we're actually, real quick, one last thing on the Avery thing. So I, of course, am much older than you guys. And I remember this happening pretty well. And I remember it being like, well, that was stupid. And now he's going to have to be suspended. Of course, I hate Sean Avery. I still hate Sean Avery. And my story is that I think a year or so ago, my buddy Gio and I were eating dinner in New York City, somewhere on the west side. And it was really nice out. It was the summertime. So we were sitting outside. And a couple of guys are sitting, outside New York City seating. Like, the seats are like kind of packed in like sardines, right? So we're sitting at our table, and there's 2 guys sitting at a table very, very close to ours. I mean, I could reach out and touch this other guy. That's how close he was. And I'm looking at two pretty good looking guys, and I'm looking at the one guy, and I'm thinking to myself, I think that's Sean Avery. And I think I even texted you, Mike. I think this is Sean Avery sitting next to me, but I didn't want to ask because, he's eating a hamburger like I am. I didn't want to bother him. But also, in the event that he is Sean Avery, what am I supposed to say? I fucking hate you? Like, I don't know.
No, you're supposed to say, like, you're supposed to give him the Wisniewski.
Yeah, I could have done well, I wouldn't have done that. But like, I'm sitting there and I texted my wife too. I'm like, I think there's a hockey player sitting next to me. She's like, oh, that's cool. I'm like, no, it's not cool because I hate this guy. If it's the guy I'm thinking of, I hate him. It's like, well, what are you going to do? I'm like, nothing. I'm not going to say anything. So I just ended up sitting there. So it might have been Sean Avery. I don't even know. But I wasn't going to be like, oh, yeah, hey, man, I'm an Islanders fan. And, I hate your guts. I didn't want to like, he probably would have something to say to me too. So I just was like, forget it. But anyway, that's my Sean Avery story. So, and now a word from our sponsors. First is always VintageIceHockey.com, where you can get t-shirts, hoodies, jerseys, and more featuring over 100 classic hockey logos. Vintage Ice Hockey now carries a full line of Islanders Anxiety merch featuring our blue and orange brain logo, as well as our Al Arbor and the Island shirts. And as always, our portion of the sales go directly to the Center for Dementia Research. That is VintageIceHockey.com. Try wines from the Pinot Project. They offer a Rosé, a Pinot Grigio, and a Pinot Noir that was named a Top 100 Best Buy by Wine Enthusiast magazine. All are delicious, priced at less than $15 a bottle, and available at local wine shops and at UBS Arena. Learn more at thepinotproject.com. Please drink responsibly. The Islanders, it didn't take long for this team to fall apart. However hot Wisniewski's start was. But he would be around until a trade in December, late December, to the Montreal Canadiens. But before that happens, again, the Islanders season basically falls apart. His scoring also sort of dries up. But now we get to my personal favorite James Wisniewski story. And that is the James Wisniewski, Doug Wade, and Andrew McDonald versus the nurses at Nassau University Medical Center. Before I get into the story, had you guys heard of this story? I mean, I've talked about it before. Mike, you might remember. Ryan, you're probably too young to have remembered. Do you remember this story at all?
Yeah,
I remember you guys talking about it on your show. That's how I remembered it. And Dan, you said an 8-game losing streak. That's selling them a bit short. They had a 14-game losing streak, and then a win, and then a 7-game losing streak. So,
November.
Standing with the nurse here.
Yeah,
the season was going at that point.
This was the November where it was really the end of right around Halloween. They started a streak where they not only did they lose whatever it was, 13 or 12, whatever, 14 in a row. They went 11 games where they scored 12 goals.
Right. This was what cost Scott Gordon his job.
Yes, exactly. The go-go system somehow didn't work, and 11 goals in 12 games, and that was something, man. And as you said, like Wisniewski, to his credit, was off and running, which really makes his Islander career, like I was saying, everything was looking like this marriage was going to work. Everyone was doing their part, the Islanders, except for the team, I guess. But I think a lot of my kind of like preconceived notions about different opponents also stem from this losing streak, because we always joke around how they never beat the Montreal Canadiens, they never beat the Ottawa Senators, and they go out. There was a time when they would go out to California and they just would lose all 3 games.
Right.
By the time, it felt like in the blink of an eye. And all those things happened on this losing streak. They just didn't beat anybody, obviously, and this was also in the middle of that. Remember that incredibly long losing streak we had against the Philadelphia Flyers?
Yeah.
That they lost to them a bunch of times during the streak. This was one for the ages, as Ryan said. They went October 23rd to December 16th. With 1 win.
I'd like to imagine Pierre LeBrun logging onto the Facebook and saying it's not a losing streak, it's a winless streak. as he's wont to do on Twitter to X to everything else.
Oh my God.
We need to make sure we're right here when talking about one of the worst teams ever assembled. And I guess you're right. I had only 8, but I think mentally I may have checked out around 8. And I started getting very, very angry and trying not to watch these guys.
Yeah.
But
this is a 117-3 streak. That's 21. That's a quarter of a season with 1 win.
Well, gosh. And again, a fired coach,
Yep.
so I'm glad you said that. So 117-1 streak?
117-3, yeah.
And 3. Okay.
And the one win
So
the one win came against the Devils in a shutout. And the Devils were not that good that season.
How did they shut him out?
They shut him out, and it was Johan Hedberg for the Devils and Rick DiPietro for the New York Islanders in a classic.
Wow. Yeah, classic. Yeah, look at that. How about that? Wow. And James Wisniewski had an assist in there.
Wow. Wait. You got to point out one of the goal scorers, Jesse Joensuu, had a big goal in this game.
First ever NHL goal for him, and a fighting major for Bruno Gervais with a misconduct. Oh my God, what a game! We gotta go.
Who did he fight? Mike Motto, who was on his team. I feel like that's the only guy that I can imagine.
Colin White.
Come on,
yeah.
Colin White fights
He did that
people.
night.
He would. I feel like Colin White would fight people. That's not fair. That's Bush League from Colin White to fight Bruno Gervais.
Yeah,
something must have happened.
He boarded White boarded somebody apparently.
Oh, and Bruno was being Bruno and
umbrage,
sticking up for one of his guys in the midst of a 117-3 streak.
Well, no. So I'm glad we had this discussion because the 117-3 streak is pivotal to my favorite James Wisniewski story. So this was in Newsday. I read this before the fight night. This was easily my highlight of the entire season because I'm still talking about this like 15 years later. But the Islanders, as they often do, as they do every year, I should say, as every team basically does in their community, as they should. It's a great thing. They go visit kids in the hospital, right? It's the Nassau University Medical Center. They're visiting kids that day. And the group that they sent was Doug Waite, James Wisniewski, Andrew McDonald. This is beautiful. They're talking to the kids. They're giving out presents. The Christmas spirit. That's awesome. Because this was on December 10th, I want to say. And yet something goes terribly awry, as we've pointed out many times already in this episode, is want to happen with the Islanders. And there's a nurse there working on the floor that day. And she takes, let's just say, isn't really pleased to see the Islanders at her job that day. She's a season ticket holder, and she gives them an earful about what she thinks about the team. And this quote I have here, there's a few articles about this, but this is from the East Bay Times. And this is Wisniewski recounting the story to reporters. He says, "We were visiting sick kids and giving them gifts. And one of the nurses there was pretty rude to me, Doug Waite, and Andy McDonald. She's a season ticket holder and saying, 'Nobody wants to go to your games. You've been giving away tickets for free.'" It was kind of like with that first comment, it's like, whoa. And then the second and third, it's to the point where we kind of had to walk away. That is easily one of the greatest Islanders quotes. It's to the point where we kind of had to walk away. That cracks me up. And if anybody out there knows any nurses, Mike, you need Emily to pull some strings. Go through, got to like Nancy Drew this thing. Get in there, get in the records room, start rifling through, try and find out who was working that day, because I need to meet this nurse and know exactly what she said to these guys. She might be a hero for all we know.
You know how like that, like there's that like ESPN will do it from time to time. They'll like do like a little special and they'll have like an animated thing, like moment in sports history, and they'll be like, oh, here's the time that Mike Vick went on that crazy run against the Vikings, and they'll like make it a cartoon, and we need to make an Islanders a series of that, and this would be one, because I would just love to cast the person to play this nurse with like a really thick Long Island accent around the holidays, and
I'm
just
picturing like Edie Falco. I think would probably be perfect.
Edie Falco would be perfect, or Teresa Caputo from the Long Island media, just like that kind of thick accent, telling off James Wisniewski and Andrew McDonald and Doug Waite, and this is also towards the end of his illustrious Islander career. Like this is right. We're already at the end, like the final chapter, so he's gonna have this fresh in his mind, going up to one of the hockey meccas and be like, how what was it like playing on Long Island? We remember Mark Streit around these parts. He seems to like it. Well, let me tell you about the time I went to the hospital, like with Doug Waite. Like it's just so great.
I mean, if I'm James Wisniewski, I've been telling this story for 15 years because this is one of the funniest things ever. But you're right. That was again on December 10th. And then on the 28th, he gets traded to Montreal for a second round pick that turns into a guy named Johan Sundstrom. We'll get back to him in a few minutes. So Ryan, you're a young kid. You're getting into the Islanders. You're finally following the team, more or less every day. They are 1-17-3 in their 21 games. The season is effectively over. This would have obviously become a regular occurrence, a couple of times later. And if you're old like me, this was kind of par for the course. What do you remember about your feelings at this point about the team? Were you like, man, what is going on with these guys? Is it always like this? Or was it, not just Wisniewski, but like, were you still just sort of fascinated by the concept of like hockey every day and following a team every day?
A little bit of both. Like originally, the first sports teams I fell in love with were the Mets, who were pretty rough between 08 and that point 2010 Christmas time, and the New Jersey Nets that I grew up following had disbanded and traded. So I was used to players I like getting traded away at that point. Fair to say, between those two teams, I didn't really know what a hockey trade looked like. I didn't even know what the draft structure is. So I was like, oh, a second round pick, or how many rounds are there? And then I found out it was like a 7-round draft. It was funny because this is like the kind of not old school, but like mid 2010 hockey guy brain, hockey GM brain that you see, where they had just played Montreal 2 days before the trade. And that was like some live scouting of Wisniewski. And they're like, oh, this guy on the Islanders looks very good. Let's pick him up. And they probably, picked up the phone, got Garth on the line, figured it out from there.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Garth actually, this is almost like a low key coup for Garth Snow, because he traded a 3rd-round pick for Wisniewski and he got back a 2nd. And I think that's probably because, again, it's only 32 games that this guy played for the Islanders, which seems almost unbelievable. He had 3 goals and 18 assists for 21 points in that time. This is for a team that lost 17 games in a row. He had 21 points in 32 games. That's pretty good. And so to me, a 2nd-round pick makes a lot of sense, but it's almost like he pumped him and dumped him, and without even realizing it.
It was bizarre. I remember just being really confused.
Right.
Be like, what?
He
Wait,
just got here.
I know why they're trading him, but he just got here, and as you said, so he finished on that team 12th in scoring and with 21 points, which is pretty crazy when you consider that he was only there for 32. This team also, it's got to be close to the record for most players ever to skate for the Islanders. This was when they were, they had the 3-1 game guys that they signed to those 1-day contracts, which is gonna not just deserve an episode, but a documentary, because that was crazy. And they had all the goalies that played this season with Poulin and Koskinen, Dwayne Rollis in as well. Like this was a team that I don't know how any of these guys knew who their teammates were. Like you just imagine being Milan Jurchina. This is your first season with the Islanders, I think, and he's just looking around, be like, oh, is this guy my teammate now? Like, where did this guy come from? This crazy guy Michael Haley's on my team. I don't know who that is. Are you sure? But yeah, he finished with 21 points in 32 games, like you said. That is also the 4th most among defensemen that season, because, as you said, Streit was gone. They had like Mike Motto running the power play for a little while during his illustrious tenure. And then it was like, Andrew McDonald had the most points among defensemen for this team. Andrew McDonald was a +9 this season.
What?
The Island? Yeah. Now I'm looking at it now, and I'm actually shocked with how many players finished even or above. And now that I've sorted it, it's a lot of them are the goalies. So and Hockey Reference doesn't do that, but still, Grabner was +13, Franz Nielsen was +13, Andrew McDonald was +9, and then Ty Wishart, who they got for Dwayne Rolison, was +5, Hamonic +4, and Oposo was +3, which is crazy to do. And you look at Wisniewski, he finished second to last in plus minus on this team in his 32 games with -18. So maybe for all of his offensive exploits, James maybe was struggling in the other end. Although he did play a ton. Yeah. That was another thing I remember. Like this is such a bizarre Islander career, because he really was so integral. He played over 23 minutes a night.
I mean, the Streit injury essentially made him the team's number one defenseman.
Yeah.
Like, that's basically what
it is. This was a team acquiring its number one defenseman in the summer and then trading him 32 games later, despite him sort of putting up the numbers you'd expect from a number one defenseman on a terrible team. It's truly bizarre.
Yeah. Seriously.
And as a first-time hockey fan, I had no clue if this was how early teams normally packed it in and started selling it off. I was like, oh, that's like I remember being like a little amused. I was like, oh, they start trading really early here.
Because it's funny. Like I never thought about it. Like in baseball, that doesn't really happen. Like, the trades that early, teams don't really pack. Like there's so many games that, you get to like game 100 and people are still like, oh, we could just put this together if we just go 20-2 for the rest of the way. Like, meanwhile their season is done. But
it's like on a meeting when someone's like, all right, I'll let you get those 6 minutes back when they ended early. And the Islanders are like, all right, we're going to let you get Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's Day, Valentine's Day, and your entire spring and summer back. Don't worry about us. We'll catch up with you in September.
Right. But yeah, no, he was the Islanders' third leading scorer at the time of his trade, which again, for a second round pick seems like a real deal. But when you only gave up a third rounder to get him, you kind of increased your yield there. And I guess real quick, we should tie a bow on this. So like I said, second round pick ended up being used on a guy named Johan Sundstrom, who you may remember played parts of 4 seasons in Bridgeport. I thought this guy got called up like every season. But it turns out he only spent 11 games with the Islanders in one season, had all of 1 assist, which came again in a significant game we'll get to in a few minutes. But what's funny is, like I mentioned before, Wisniewski was traded for a third-round pick that the Ducks used to take a guy named Joseph Cramarosa. The Islanders got a second-round pick for Wisniewski, and they used it on a guy named Johan Sundstrom. In 2015, these two guys fought in an AHL game, Sundstrom versus Cramarosa. And Sundstrom was not a fighter.
Looks to move it down, second effort. Now we got to fight back the other way as Sundstrom has dropped the gloves with Joseph Cramarosa. And Cramarosa, a series of right-hand uppercuts against Sundstrom, who is not a fighter. Sonny ends up on top of him, and the linesman will separate those two. That started from the physical play back trying to gather up the puck in the right wing corner of the Bridgeport zone. And eventually it looked like Cramarosa had it up, and Sundstrom got banged up. He's going right to the room.
I don't know what his beef was with Cramarosa. I don't know if they realized they were traded for the same guy and just decided to fight it out and see who was better. But I found this endlessly hilarious when I was looking this up. I'm like, oh my God, these guys, how did these two guys, of all the two guys to fight each other in a random AHL game many, many years later, it happened to be these two guys. But
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
At the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event, get deals so right, it almost feels wrong. Now's the best time to get that Hyundai you've always wanted. Plus, every new Hyundai comes with America's Best Warranty and 3 years or 36,000 miles of limited complimentary maintenance. Don't think you can get away with all that? Think again. The Hyundai Getaway Sales Event. Visit your local Hyundai dealer today. It's a great day for a new Hyundai.
Are your business expenses playing hide and seek? With Uber for Business, the small spends that slip through the cracks, like rides and meals, go right where you need them. Because it integrates with leading expense platforms, you can say goodbye to surprise costs, missing dollars, or chasing receipts. Everything's track downable. Uber for Business. Make small steps that make a big impact. Learn more at uber.com/small steps.
Summer's here, and you can now get almost anything you need for your sunny days delivered with Uber Eats. What do we mean by almost? Well, you can't get a well-groomed lawn delivered, but you can get a chicken parmesan delivered. A cabana? That's a no. But a banana? That's a yes. A nice tan? Sorry, nope. But a box fan? Happily yes. A A day of sunshine? No. A box of fine wines? Yes. Uber Eats can definitely get you that. Get almost anything delivered with Uber Eats. Order now. Alcohol in select markets. Product availability may vary by region. See app for details.
New Vitamin Water Zero Sugar Pineapple Passion Fruit is packed with vitamins. Just like the amount of peas we packed in that sentence. It's packed like your tote bag. The one you stole from your ex. Or your overpriced half a studio apartment. Or extra rushed rush hour traffic. Packed like your calendar. Triple booked at 5, of course. Grab a vitamin water. Did we mention it's packed with vitamins?
What I remember about Johan Sundstrom was that he was going to be the next Franz. We got our next really responsible two-way European smooth skating centerman. And he felt like an absolute sure thing. That he we just got to wait till he kind of fills out, and then he was just gone. He was just never to be heard from again. And he's only 32. Is Johan Sundstrom. So that tells you,
he's still
feels
playing.
like he's still playing. He is still playing in the SHL. This is his third season with Frölunda. He's had a good European hockey career. But I am a little sad that we didn't get to. He was one part of that kind of crop of Sound Tigers at this time that they each looked like and sounded like and were sold to us as the goods, and would all top out at 20 games played.
Yeah. David Ulstrom, I was saying
Ulstrom
before,
and Yoan
basically the
Su
same kind of guy,
and all those guys.
All those guys, right? So, Ryan, do you have any memories of Johan Sundstrom at all? I didn't sound like it from what
this
we were
was
talking about.
this was a little bit too early for me to get into Islanders prospecting and stuff at the time. Wasn't following the Bridgeport team. I knew the name. It is one of those rare names you don't see on the back of jerseys ever that play for the team. You always see some weird ones floating around, but I've never seen a Sundstrom.
You go to a lot of Sound Tigers games. So is that true? Is that the case with Sound Tigers too? You'll go to a Sound Tigers game and see a Jesse Yoan Su or something, or
the rotation's pretty good. You'll see some really good old ones.
You're gonna have to send some pictures.
I'm trying to think of any off the top of my head.
And you had the illustrious. We talked about the Islanders going 117-3 over 21 game stretch.
Oh gosh,
here,
I don't know if Dan's privy to this.
I've kind of I was reading about them today. So now we're recording this on April 3rd, and they're 420 and something at home, right?
And Ryan is even more impressive than that.
Yeah, so I have I've never had season tickets to anything before, but since I moved out to Central Connecticut, I decided I'll invest in some Bridgeport seasons. They're only a reasonable price. Don't want to give away how much I'm paying for them. But so I started going back in October to the first couple of games when they had Marcus Hogberg, Pierre Engvall on the team. And I was having fun. It was good. They went 0-4. My streak at Bridgeport games now up to 0-20. So every game I've gone to, the team has lost. They are 0-20 in games I've gone to, and they're a 4-5-1 team when I've not attended. So close to 500.
That's so good.
Wow.
I mean, that's one of the most impressive Iron Man streaks I've ever heard.
You can't eliminate the null hypothesis. I went through and did the P-score to see if I was the problem. You can't eliminate the hypothesis that I am the problem and the reason the team loses all the time. But,
I have seen exactly 0 Bridgeport Islanders games, and I can say with great confidence that you are not the problem in this scenario.
Yeah.
I think it's called talent level, coaching, organizational structure, all that kind of stuff. But that is impressive. And the funny thing too about a team, even if you were you know what, man, it may not be me, but I gotta get rid of. What are you gonna do? Scalp AHL tickets to somebody? You're supposed to seek geek AHL ticket. What are you supposed to do? You can't. You're just stuck. Yeah,
there's nothing. I stopped voluntarily going at 0-16, but family will come to town, or me and the missus will have a night off, and we'll want to go to a Bridgeport game, or they're doing dollar beer night, and we'll convince ourselves to go. But after the first period, I just know what's coming, and they play so. On the radio station, the Islanders play. That do 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 do. They play that little intro before Chris King comes on.
Yeah.
Yes.
They play that after the empty net at the Bridgeport game. After the empty net goes in the back of the net for the other team, and it just plays on my head on repeat whenever I leave that building, and I'm just seeing red.
Oh my god. What a special group they are.
Yeah, no, it's a fun place to put a hockey team.
And your wife goes too, like.
Yeah, no, she likes it. I mean, Storm, we're friends with the mascot. She has like a hat she wears to the games for Bridgeport.
That's funny.
She has fun. She doesn't care if they win or lose. So we just get a big bag of popcorn for $1.
That's good.
Right.
You can't care if the Bridgeport Sound Tigers win or lose. That's a prerequisite from the Johan Sundstrom days through the Pierre Engvall days. I'll tell you that.
The interesting fact I found out about Sundstrom were two of them. He lost in the 15th round of a shootout against the Lightning in 2013 for the New York Islanders.
Oh yes, he did. Yeah, I remember that. That was God, who was in goal? Who was in goal for the Lightning that night? Bishop? Was it Ben Bishop? Or I can't remember, but I remember that game. It was towards the end of the season that year, so it was a completely meaningless game for the Islanders, because that was the Vanek year. That was the 2013-14, and I think at the time it was the second longest shootout after the Marek Malik one. So that I do remember that that shootout. My God. And wasn't it weird where like I want to say that it was a one of those where it wasn't like save after save after save, like it was guys were scoring. I
went through the thread posted by the Islanders on old Twitter, and it was one of those where it was like a high scoring shootout. It was Johan Sundstrom just kind of staring down the barrel of a pretty good goalie, and it wound up ending.
That's really funny.
It might have even been Dwayne Rollison in goal.
I'm checking. No. It was Nabaka versus Ben Bishop.
It was Bishop. Right. Yeah, I knew it was Nabby for the Isles, and oh my God, I remember that.
15 rounds, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 goals.
Yes, 26 shooters, and Johan Sundstrom was deemed to not good enough that he had to go behind. He probably went behind like 3 or 4 defensemen. It's so good.
I mean, Matt Martin took an attempt. I mean, come on, man. Like, really? Thomas Hickey took an attempt. Cizikas scored at least, but that's really funny. Anyway, also
was it Steve Downey? I feel like Steve Downey scored the winner. Someone like that.
Sammy Sallow.
Sammy Sallow.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Lightning had a shootout that went 15 rounds back in 2006. That's the team record. We're now starting the 13th. Sammy Sallow. Scoring! Veteran. Doesn't even crack a smile.
Well, Sallow, Koska, Stamkos beat him on his stick side. Only Palat beat him on the glove side.
Leave it to the defenseman. Act like you've done it before, guys. The 39-year-old says, let's get out of here. It's getting late. Yeah, someone's got to get up early in the morning. Johan Sundstrom. The 21. That's it. Stopped by Bishop and the Lightning win.
Also, 3 guys named Ryan in this shootout. Ryan Malone, Ryan Strome, and Ryan Callahan. All in
Oh my God.
So there you go. Anyway, all right. We gotta get back on the James Wisniewski topic now.
One more Johan Sundstrom fact. He was demoted to the AHL on Scott Mayfield's promotion to the NHL. So
wow. So there you go. So the Sundstrom tree continues to this day. How about that? in a way.
And he's got a name. Like that's the part. I think part of the reason why Johan Sundstrom felt like a sure thing was like that is if you're naming someone Johan Sundstrom, they're going to play 600 very responsible NHL games. Like they're just going to be a really good Swedish center for like the Avalanche or the Ducks. Right. And in the early days of like blogging, they'd be like, this is the most underrated player in the NHL. But when the Islanders get a guy named with that kind of name, he just plays 11 games for them. And that's it.
I have one more Johan Sundstrom fun fact to come up in a little bit. And we have already, I think, crossed the Weird Islanders threshold. So welcome Johan Sundstrom to your official Weird Islanders episode. Wasn't planned that way, but you got there, pal. I'm happy for you. But no, we can kind of wrap up the Wisniewski end of this because this is where, so he plays in Montreal and is good. He's good for them. Like, again, he brings the same same qualities he brought to the Islanders. That team made the playoffs. They lost in the first round. And then after that, he is traded again by the Canadiens to the Blue Jackets. He's traded in the summer. I don't know what the deal was with this. Maybe it was another contract thing. They got a 5th round pick. So the Habs actually got even less than the Islanders got for Wisniewski, and more and less than they gave up for him. So great job. Mark Bergevin, I guess, was probably the GM at that time. But I thought he was in Montreal longer, but he ends up going to Columbus on the same day that Jeff Carter was also traded by the Flyers to Columbus. And we all know what happened with Carter. He didn't like it. He ends up getting sent to LA. Kings win the Stanley Cup. He's reunited out there with Mike Richards, and they help the Kings win their first cup. Wisniewski, though, apparently liked Columbus because he stayed there and ended up playing more games with Columbus than any other team. 209 games played, 26 goals, 95 assists, 121 points between 2011 and 2015. So again, in for a team that didn't have a ton of great seasons, I don't even think he even made the playoffs with this Columbus team at all. Maybe they did. Let's see. Oh no, they did. 2014 they made the playoffs. He was a good player for them. I bet now I'm regretting a little bit not asking Darren Quint about James Wisniewski playing for the Blue Jackets because I feel feeling they might have played together for a little bit. But this is, to me, the other team I kind of picture Wisniewski playing for is the Blue Jackets. Ryan, would you say that's the same for you? Do you picture him as an Islander, or because you grew up knowing him as an Islander, or is he more of a Blue Jacket to you?
Definitely more of a Blue Jacket. I mean, when I was researching for this episode, one thing I like to do is I go on other teams, whenever the Islanders get a guy or lose a guy, I go on other teams' Reddits or their social media and just try to get a vibe check of what everyone says about him. Columbus fans are still posting about this guy to this day. Like he's that level of guy for the Blue Jackets fan base, which I think is really cool. Also, when Wisniewski signed his contract with the Blue Jackets, on that same day, Radek Martinek signed a contract with the Blue Jackets in his 1-year odyssey off the island.
Dark day in Islanders history.
That we still got to figure out a way to get that wiped. There's got to be something. You talk about we're gonna have to find a Blue Jackets person to come on, and we'll do a weird Islanders episode about a weird Blue Jacket and just be like where we want to talk to you about Radek Martinek and his time with the Blue Jackets, because that is it. It really, he scored for them, and he played Martinek 7 games with the Blue Jackets that season, and he scored for them. So that's it's incredible. One thing also I don't think we've mentioned yet for Wisniewski, during his time with the Islanders, he wore a letter. He was one of the alternate captains of this team. And it's probably once again because it's Streit not being around. So it's like, wait, Wisniewski, and God knows who else, probably Mark Eaton and maybe Radek. I don't know who else. What other members of the leadership group there were, but he was on it, and that's really it, man. Like he was supposed to be that. He was supposed to be exactly that, like the alternate captain, brash guy, and I guess he did turn into that for the Blue Jackets. So I do picture him in that Blue Jackets jersey, the like the navy blue one with the stars on the sleeve. But I also remember that that Canadiens team pretty well. Like for some reason, I don't know why he sticks out to me like a Hab as well. Yeah. But yeah, I mean he turned that season into a long contract, man. Like that was a big one.
He played 43 games for the Canadiens. He played more games for the Habs than he did for the Islanders.
and it was kind of a perfect storm when the day Dan asked me to come on Weird Islanders and look through the roster and make my pick, I was talking to a Habs fan about the Mike Rileys and the Mark Streit shared between the two teams. Right. And James Wisniewski came up in that conversation. I was like, oh my God, I remember James Wisniewski. And like the Habs fan also was very excited to talk Wisniewski because that was PK Subban's first year in Montreal and they had good vibes around the team.
Sure. I mean, 30 points in 43 games is not bad. That's not shabby at all. I mean, again, 21 and 32 for the Islanders. So That was
he had a great season.
Yeah, he really did. He really did for two extremely forgettable teams. I mean, the only people that care about that Islanders team are us, basically, and mainly it's just because they're just a bunch of goofball guys. But so yeah, he played in Columbus for the most time, 4 years there. Also, the site of his final suspension, and that came on September 24th, 2011, in the preseason when he was suspended for an illegal hit to the head of Cal Clutterbuck. It is funny that Rolcon's kind of comes back around again. Wisniewski would end up getting traded back to Anaheim for a 3rd round pick. And they got a 2nd round pick. Actually, it was kind of a big trade. Traded by Columbus with a 3rd round pick. Anaheim selected Brent Gates to Anaheim for a 2nd round pick. Kevin Stenlund, who might still be in the league. Rene Bourque and Wild Bill Carlson, who of course would go on to play very famously for the Vegas Golden Knights.
That is that's a fun one.
That is. Then he would only spend a little bit of time in Anaheim. They would trade him to Carolina for Anton Hudobin, a trade I have absolutely no recollection of happening. Anton Hudobin was traded to the Ducks. Wow, that's kind of crazy. But Wisniewski would only play 1 game for Carolina. So something weird must have happened there. Ended up signing with a free agent with Vladivostok in the KHL, because all these guys end up in the KHL. He also played time in Germany. And we'll get to what he's doing now in a minute. But yeah, what a wild and woolly career for this guy. He bounced around a lot, played twice with the Ducks. Again, the most games played for him was with Columbus. Only 24 playoff games, though, out of 552 regular season games. But 552 regular season games, 274 points. That's almost like half a point a game. Like, I mean, what do we think James Wisniewski's legacy is as an NHL player? Yes, obviously, he's going to be remembered as the guy who made a really unfortunate and terrible gesture towards Sean Avery while he was playing for the Islanders. But as a player, this dude wasn't really that bad. But again, like we've said, less than the sum of his parts, right? Like, he puts up all these numbers and yet he keeps getting traded somehow.
Yeah, it says a lot that you're saying, right? Like, his biggest moment in the NHL happened like when he was coloring outside the lines. Like, it wasn't in the context of the game, even though his numbers when he was coloring inside the lines were pretty good. Right. And it's just so funny that it happens during his he played 1 game in Carolina. If you throw that one out, during his briefest stint of his 5-team tour. Like, he's 200 games with the Blue Jackets, almost 170 with the Blackhawks, almost 100 with the Ducks. He had the playoff run with the Habs where he was really good for them. But the thing he will be remembered for is his moment as an Islander somehow, despite him only being here for 32 days and 32 games, I should say. And I want, like, he did. So he wore a letter. I don't know if I'd have to go back and look at that video to see if he was wearing a letter during that time. And I wonder if if they then took it away. I'm going to have to go back and research this while you guys rabble amongst yourself, or is it the opposite where he wasn't wearing a letter at the time and then
they gave it to him?
They gave it to him for what he did to Sean Avery.
Well, Doug Waite was the captain. So my guess is that he saw another Michigan guy and was like, let's give him an A. But yeah, we should find that out. I know, Ryan, what do you think about Wisniewski's legacy? Again, this is a guy who I don't know if he played, I guess, in the early analytics era. So I don't know what people would have thought about him analytically speaking, but he feels like the kind of guy who would have been a bit of a darling player amongst that set, because again, his numbers were good, but it's just something about guys like this means that they're constantly on the move. And but I mean, really not a terrible player at all, just not a guy who really stuck in too many places.
For sure. One thing I guess would be any fan base that you've talked to him besides maybe Carolina, like, from the Columbus fans that I've seen online still wearing his jersey to games. My friend who's a Habs fan still speaking highly of the guy, us all coming together to do this podcast. Can only imagine what Chicago fans think, but it's probably positive, or Ducks fans, however many of them care that much. But yeah, no, it's really cool that he played at so many spots and was so memorable for players of those teams. Like, most of these weird Islanders are either like our guys or they're like a shared experience throughout the league. I think it's cool that we had a really fun experience with the shared experience throughout the league. Also, he played for the cursed U.S. Olympic team in 2018. That was something I don't know if we got to mentioning, but not too many people remember the 2018 Olympics. I think I tried to sit through them; they were very bad because USA didn't have a team, no NHLers, stuff like that. But James Wisniewski was there and got a point in the group stage, which was cool.
That's really funny.
To wrap up my research for this podcast, our thesis, he was wearing a letter when he made that gesture to Sean Avery. He was great. Yep. And also he when he hit Cal Clutterbuck, Cal was on the Wild. He was wearing that red jersey, and it looks like the hit was in the preseason, because I am now looking at a thumbnail image of Ford Performance Center All-Star Brendan Shanahan, because he was then the director of player safety, which is just hilarious to think about, because the guy just loved chicken winging people in the mush more than anybody, explaining what's going on. And yeah, there is James Wisniewski hitting Cal Clutterbuck and sending him, it's like one of those moments in a movie where the two people touch and or like the Monstars touch the basketball, and all of a sudden his Cal Clutterbuck, he had no choice but to become an Islander. James Wisniewski hit the Islander into him in this moment. But
that's really funny. As the video shows, is it one of those videos?
Yeah.
After the horn clearly sounded, signaling the end of the third period, Columbus defenseman James Wisniewski delivered an illegal hit to the head of Minnesota forward Cal Clutterbuck. As the video shows, Wisniewski intentionally targets Clutterbuck's head and makes it the principal point of contact.
Exactly. A hit resulting to an opponent's head, where the head is the targeted principal point of contact. As long as you are a member of one of these teams, you are going to get suspended.
some things never change, of course. That is amazing. That is an amazing fun fact, and that will lead us to our final Johan Sundstrom fun fact, and that is that his one NHL point was an assist, and it came against the Columbus Blue Jackets and James Wisniewski in 2014. So it all comes back around. The Sundstrom-Wisniewski feud, was born maybe there. I don't know. We'll see. But this has been a lot of fun. This has been a wild ride, in remembering a wild player. And we said before we were going to talk about what he's doing now. And well, first of all, Ryan, you came about almost an archaeological find about Wisniewski that I think you should tell everybody what it is and where to find it, because even if you don't care for the player, you're going to want to look this up, because it is definitely a trip back in the history of the internet.
It was very fun. So I was going through, tweets about James Wisniewski, just searching up James Wisniewski Islander, seeing like the hits from, between 2011 or people calling back to it over the years. And I think two of them were by a Twitter user, The Big Lebowski. One of them was the night of the expansion draft with Vegas. Mike tweeted, James Wisniewski would make a great Golden Knight. And I was like, that works for me. The other one was he just tweeted out the website, jameswisniewski.com. Spelt as it is. So jameswisniewski.com, you click on it and you immediately are greeted by a banner picture of James Wisniewski looking off in the distance in a hockey jersey and pads, with the famous Wayne Gretzky quote, "A good hockey player plays where the puck is. A great hockey player plays where the puck's going to be." And this was, I guess, an offshoot post-career James Wisniewski betting website type, not website, but like picks, gambling picks, I think he was going for, but also is half gambling website, half James Wisniewski tribute owned by James Wisniewski. There's an FAQ, there's a bio on James, videos on James, his Wizwear apparel line, as well as a giveaway section that I don't think's been touched since pre-pandemic. But
the downloads section has wallpapers for your phone. So if you want a wallpaper of James Wisniewski as either a Blue Jacket or a Montreal Canadian, this is where you can get it. So it's a really cool pick, actually. There's one with him with the American flag. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, so I would definitely check it out. Yeah, jameswisniewski.com. We'll put a link in there, but this is an amazing find, and the picture, like you said, is just, it's glorious. It's like black and white. He's looking off in the distance, and the quote is from somebody that's not James Wisniewski. It's Wayne Gretzky.
Oh my goodness,
It's just amazing.
I remember that site. He definitely had it during his Islander years. And I just was inspired to do a Google search of Michael Leboff, James Wisniewski, and it turns out when I was at my old job at Action Network, I wrote an Olympic 2018 Olympic preview. And that team also, not only did it have James Wisniewski, I'm really disappointed in my 2018 self that I didn't mention that he was a former Islander, but it was Wisniewski, Matt Gilroy, Jonathan Blum, Bobby Sanguinetti, Noah Welch, and of course Will Borgen of the New York Rangers is on that team, as Troy Terry. And the one I always remember is Jordan Greenway from that team.
Yes.
I remember he was like a big deal for them, and so that's I'm tapped out on James Wisniewski stuff somehow, but I'm
well, we do have one final fact, and that is that currently James Wisniewski is the associate head coach of Ohio State's women's hockey team. So he's still in the game, still imparting knowledge. He might still be hitting slap shots into a net somewhere over in the big red land over there for the Ohio State Buckeyes. But yeah, associate head coach of the women's team. He's been there for quite a while, apparently. So good on him for giving back. I don't know if it's weird that a Michigan guy works for Ohio State, but I guess, he didn't go to Michigan, so I guess it's okay, but he is from Michigan. But I've known people for whom that would never happen. But, good for him. Keep it going. And hopefully he's telling that story about the nurses to the players at Ohio State and anybody else who will listen, because I want to hear the full story. I want to know what this nurse said, honestly. That's my biggest takeaway from this. Ryan, this has been a lot of fun. It's always great to have you on. It's always great to listen to Skates at the Stakes. Tell the guys we said hello. I hope you had a great time, and can't wait to get you on again sometime.
Yeah, this was awesome. Thank you guys for listening at home. This has been awesome. Between Broussard and now Wisniewski, I think I've got two of the more fun ones that they've done on this program. But yeah, if there's ever a round 3, I'm definitely down to come back on, because this is one of my favorite shows out there. So this was awesome.
Don't worry. There will be. And obviously, everybody, check out Skates at the Stakes if you aren't already. I don't know why you're not, but you should be. It's great. And I look forward to the next episode. We don't know when this episode's going to come out, but you guys will be doing more episodes, I'm sure. So I can't wait. Reminder that we are on Patreon at patreon.com/IslandersAnxiety. Get there for ad-free episodes, bonus podcasts, written posts, and a whole lot more. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Spotify, all those places. Our theme song is Knuckles by Bjorn Falk. Listen to more of Bjorn's music on Bandcamp and Spotify. Read Lighthouse Hockey every single day for your most up-to-date Islanders news and discussion. Islanders Anxiety podcasts are part of the Fans First Sports Network. Shop VintageIceHockey.com. Try wines from the Pinot Project. Mike, where can everybody find you on Twitter?
The Big Lebowski with 2 E's.
Follow Mike at the Big Lebowski. Look up his old James Wisniewski tweets on Twitter. Any final thoughts on James Wisniewski, on Johan Sundstrom? I love when we can fit an extra weird Islander in here. I love when that happens. Or any of the other topics we talked about today.
I found one thing that might be interesting in the Isles Anxiety lore. So James Wisniewski, prior to jameswisniewski.com, had blog.jameswisniewski.com, which served as a blog, and he blogged his time with the Islanders a little bit.
Ooh. Oh my goodness.
And the one I'm looking at here is December 29th. He has a blog called A New York Goodbye.
Oh no.
To which he says, "The Wiz says goodbye to New York with big thanks. James Wisniewski leaves the incredible Islanders fans who game after game cheered on, shouting from the stands for the Canton-born hockey player, impressively fighting his way through the NHL. James now looks forward to playing for the Habs and talk about hockey." John Tavares, take notes. That was a good little write-up from the Wiz there.
That's amazing. Well, or was it? Because he's talking about himself in the third person.
All of the blogs are in the third person. I don't get it. His wife is also mentioning her name in the third person, so that was my initial thought. Maybe she writes them, but no, they're all written in third person.
And there is a comment from a user on this blog post from a user named Cora Lee, who commented, "Cheers, pal. I appreciate the writing. he commented that 9 months later. So yeah, you know what? This was James Wisniewski. He was just like he's like a prototypical early 2010s hockey player where nobody really knew how to use Twitter yet, and it wasn't like just like a PR stunt or a PR arm for players. They were saying stuff, and he was blogging, and him Brent Sopel. Those were the Islander bloggers. So
sort of a pioneer, I guess, in a way as well. But wow, I think this episode might set the record for fun facts discovered during the course of the episode, because they just kept coming. That's sort of the James Wisniewski story, also in a nutshell, right? Like every time you think you know him, he does something weird that is just some, like, oh my God, what? I didn't know. Why is he doing that? I didn't know he could do that. But anyway, this has been a lot of fun. We hope you guys have had a lot of fun listening to us. And we'll be back in a couple weeks with another Weird Islander and another great guest. Until then, keep the Islanders weird. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.